Spontaneous second line parades, street festivals, and music blaring from every club on Bourbon Street, Frenchman Street, Oak Street. It's all a part of what attracts visitors to the Big Easy, but it can also keep those who live nearby from resting easy. Culture and comfort clash over the city's noise ordinance. That's tonight on the 504.
It's the 504 on My 54, covering the biggest issues and events all over Southeast Louisiana. Now, here's Melanie Hebert.
Welcome in tonight to the 504. They say the noise is just too much. 15 neighborhood organization leaders now from every corner of the city are encouraging the New Orleans City Council to, in their words, fix the city's currently flawed noise ordinance. It's a topic causing a lot of controversy in a city, of course, known for its nightlife and music. So we have people to weigh in on both sides of the issue tonight. We begin with Justin Winch from the Coalition of the Neighborhood Organizations who want change right now. And first of all, Justin, your coalition just released 7 essential items, you call it, to make the noise ordinance for you, as the way you see it, work. And you have 15 now organizations that have all come together.
Correct. How
long has this been in the works, and can you kind of catch us up to date, because this has been a few years in the making? Yeah,
and I guess it's been with every city in the U.S. But noise ordinances are a very tedious thing. You're playing with people's rights, free speech rights, First Amendment rights. And the city of New Orleans is no different. Starting in the late 90s, the street musicians had made a push to raise the decibel levels so that they could practice their right to free speech in the French Quarter, particularly, and through the legal maneuvering, the ordinances got to a level that is not very protective of others, other entertainers, residents, business owners, etc. Right. So as a result, the noise ordinance got, number one, it got unenforced, and number two, it got just unwieldy. So what the city has done, and the city should be applauded.
Was it ever really enforced, though?
At one time it was. You know, there's documents that from in the 1970s where the police would go out and issue citations and arrest people even. Here in 1977, Sergeant DeSala went, and there's a list of 12 clubs where he got decibel readings, and then they went. And
this doesn't happen anymore.
Exactly. Yeah, this doesn't happen anymore. And for whatever reason, the city's.
Well, because the resources are stretched pretty thin.
Exactly.
I mean, do you think that, I know you guys are making a big push, and we are going to go through these 7 essential amendments, if you will, of the ordinance to show people what you're pushing for specifically, but I know that you want more police enforcement. Do you think that that's feasible right now with the way that our police department and our budget is spread so thin?
I mean, I think that is why we elect the officials that we elect. They have to. But
given the situation that we are in right now, do you think that's feasible?
I mean, it has to be feasible. You can't.
And of course, you think it's a good use of taxpayer dollars.
Exactly. Okay. You can't cut the taxpayers for their quality of life and being able to eat and sleep. And even musicians, they have to live somewhere.
But a lot of people would argue too, and do argue, that if you move to those areas, you know the situation when you move in there. So why move there and expect it to change?
I think that has a lot to do with misinformation. I think that that neighborhoods are inherently they're zoning for purposes of making sure that certain decibel levels and noise levels are restricted to certain areas. So I think that has to do with predictability letting people.
Well, let's specify, because we're looking at video here. We just saw a second line, so that's a good example of a noisy parade or such that would be traveling through a residential area, because of course you have residential areas and commercial areas, and you have Bourbon Street clearly and other areas of the French Quarter that you expect to be loud, and tourists go there knowing and wanting it to be loud. So in a situation like that second line going through a residential area, are you looking to overall change the noise level of traditions deep-rooted here in New Orleans?
And that's the thing with the current ordinance, how it is. The current ordinance permits second lines, it permits parades, it permits all of these culturally significant practices of free speech. You know, you can go down to City Hall right now and apply for a permit, and you can march down through a neighborhood with your, jazz funeral or a second line, and the neighbors can't do anything because you can get a permit from the city that says for a temporary period of time you can express your free speech. It just it puts a time and a place restriction on these things to prevent chaos from coming in. And the same thing that allows you to go get a permit for your second line parade would prevent somebody else from coming and interrupting your second line parade, because they would have to go to the city and get a permit too, and the city would say, no, we've already got a second line scheduled at this time, you get yours after. Right. So it keeps things in balance.
And I know that's part of what you want to enforce is the permitting process. There are a lot of musicians, of course, who are upset about this effort and are standing against it, but there are a lot of people who agree with you. A lot of organizations. We mentioned 15. It was 13. You just updated me that 2 more have joined as of this morning this effort. So let's go through the 13 that I knew. Algiers President's Council, Broadmoor Improvement Association. These are all the organizations, again, that the leaders are for this enforcement of the noise ordinance. Eastern New Orleans Neighborhood Advisory Commission, Esplanade Ridge Treme Civic Association, Faubourg Marigny Improvement Association, French Quarter Citizens, Garden District Association, Lake Vista Property Owners Association, Maple Area Residents Neighbors First for Bywater, St. Charles Avenue Association, Vieux Carré Property Owners Residents Association, Warehouse District Neighborhood Association. So you can see, I mean, even on the West Bank, this is across the board. And which 2 am I leaving out now?
I think you had Broadmoor Improvement and Clamana, Claiborne, Milan, Napoleon, Louisiana Neighborhood Association.
Okay, so this is an effort across the board.
Yeah.
What's the time frame of you guys getting these enforcements through? What's the next step for you?
I mean, we would like for the mayor to to step out and for city council to step up and provide either the funds or the manpower or whatever is needed to enforce what's already there, and then to make these changes to bring the ordinance back to where it was when it was working.
And you started giving us the history of the noise ordinance here in New Orleans and you talk about what's already there, but just last year there was the new ordinance passed about the speakers. What exactly is that?
It's the loudspeaker ordinance. It just prohibits loudspeakers outside of commercial establishments in the French Quarter.
So is that not being enforced?
I honestly don't know. I know.
So that's not a big part of your argument then.
No, I mean, of course we don't want the loudspeakers to proliferate into the public sphere.
Okay, well, let's go through the 7 what you call essential items that would make the noise ordinance fair and effective. Starting with the First Amendment is any business that has live entertainment and should I say, this isn't really an amendment.
Yeah,
I mean, this is more of an enforcement.
These are just concepts.
It's a way to enforce that you're proposing.
Exactly.
The proposals. Okay, so the first proposal: any business that has live entertainment has to take reasonable measures to comply with the noise ordinance, and that would include developing a sound control program, documenting sound level measurements to be kept on file. Can you explain this?
Yeah, I mean, what this does is it's a proactive measure on behalf.
It sounds like a lot of work for employees.
Well, I mean, and think about it. It would create jobs, number one, because you would have someone on staff that would make sure that your business was in compliance. So
so you'd be like recording the decibel levels every night and then keeping it in a database for your business, and everyone would be required to do this.
Exactly.
And then the city would have to enforce this and check up on it. That's what you would want. Right?
Or the city wouldn't have to check up, but anytime there was a complaint, the bar could say, look, here are our readings for this night, you know.
Okay. Okay, and then the second proposal, appoint a full-time person to administer and enforce the ordinances. That kind of plays into what we were just talking about, who would have the backing of the NOPD and the health department, and who would maintain a public online record-keeping system to track complaints, enforcement, compliance efforts. And this is something we touched on earlier about the city really being stretched in terms of resources and especially police presence. Should taxpayers be paying for this? Is this something that you feel across the board would be the best use of our money?
Well, the thing is, this is already in the ordinance, so the taxpayers are already paying.
I understand, but there's a lot. There's a lot. I mean, there are laws that can't be enforced even just because of the resources and the money being stretched thin.
Yeah, I understand. I think these 15 organizations have spoken for their neighborhoods, and they've indicated that it's a priority for them.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and that's why you're here. Okay, we're going to continue on with these essential elements to the noise ordinance. When we return, we'll be right back. We're having a discussion about the city's noise ordinance, which has become a real controversial topic. Justin Winch is from the coalition of 50 neighborhood organizations now that are strongly supporting making those enforcements of the noise ordinance. Also joining us tonight now, coming into the conversation, Glenn David Andrews, a New Orleans musician. And you were, I have to say, you were a little late because, of course, you worked last night. You're making some of this beautiful noise out on the streets in some of these clubs, but some of the amendments we've already talked about, or the enforcements, I should say, that they're proposing, Glenn, documenting the sound levels. And none of this is new. This is all already in the ordinance, but they're trying to come up with different ways that they'd get passed through the city council to enforce these measures. Documenting the sound level per each business, and then keeping a public online record-keeping system so that if there were complaints, you could go back. And first of all, let's let you comment up until this point on those procedures that would pass.
Well, I've been fighting this battle for 20 years. Me, Trombone Shorty, went to jail for it along with the great Tuba Fat in Jackson Square. Miss Mary Howell, civil rights attorney, we've been fighting this for 20 years. And every few years, there's a different neighborhood group, there's a different organization that comes along and say... And
there are 15 banding together now.
Every few years is going to come along and do that. Mm-hmm. What none of those 15 are saying is how to make common sense compromise. Have you tried to reach a common sense compromise with Justin? This is the first time this is the first time I've ever met Justin, but I'm not new to this fight. Yeah. I've been to this fight before. Most of the people in these organizations ever come around. Mm-hmm. And my thing is to compromise. That word seems... So what's the problem? Why can't you guys come to a compromise? Because you've tried, right? I'm pretty sure, and I'll say this, pretty sure, that nobody's reaching out to none of these bands. Is that true, Justin? I would pretty agree. I pretty much know that for a fact.
I mean, we would love to involve the bands. Like I said, and I think me and Glenn were talking earlier. That's what it all boils down to, is common sense, common courtesy. Yeah. Seems like it. And it seems like within the music community, because you can understand their point and completely. You can understand the residents' point as well. Well, I've been on both sides of this fight, and I understand this after being a street musician for 20 years. It's kind of hard for a band to set up in quote-unquote a residential area and play music. And another thing, I wish we would stop calling it noise, because it's not noise, it's music. No, because this is the noise ordinance in general. It applies to more than just music, right? But they're not making noise, they're making music. But this is not this is not a restriction just on music. What other types of noise, because music is a type of, sound. It's not called the sound noise ordinance, though. I can't do anything about that. It's called officially the noise ordinance by City Council. What other types of sound would it encompass? It's canned music that comes, satellite feed. Okay, but wipe music out of it. What sirens or anything else? Barkers. some clubs employ barkers to stand out front and scream, you know, to get people to come inside the club. All of
so
that.
Those are included.
Yeah, all of that.
Okay, let's keep going through these amendments, or these, I keep saying, these enforcements, so we can get through this. Okay, number 3 would be to clarify that all of the measurements from sound of private or public property in all of the zoning districts we discussed would be taken at the property line of the source from the sound. Now, how is that different from what's in, I mean, what's the push here?
It's just a clarification of where the measurements should be
Is that
taken.
not being measured correctly right now?
There's ambiguity in the police.
Is anyone
force
even measuring? Because you said nobody's really keeping track of this.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know that it is being measured.
So let's move on to number 4. Impose penalties. Okay, this is really talking about the penalties that would deter repeat offenses, like limiting the operating hours of businesses, or completely shutting down businesses even who don't comply with the ordinance. And also, you're pushing to pass state legislation to allow higher or unlimited fines. So what fines do you think would be fair for breaking the ordinance, and in what cases?
The fines that are in place now were based on figures from 20 years ago. So just something that would
make. What are they?
I believe it's $300. Mm-hmm. And so what it would do is just increase that to make to give more respect to the penalty.
Okay. What would that do to musicians, Glenn?
This is what he's talking about doing. It's what's already going on.
But it's not being enforced, right?
Well, it's bigger than enforcement. What it is it's the city of New Orleans coming down on music clubs. It's time for the people who actually run the clubs, the people who actually play in the clubs, and the people like certain people in his groups to come together, scrap all of this, and make something common sense for New Orleans, because the noise ordinance does not make common sense.
But Justin, you're nodding your head in agreement to that. Have you guys, has anyone as a part of you, because I mean this is a big organization that you are a part of now, who have some good concerns. Have you gone to the businesses, if you haven't gone to the musicians and the bands individually, what has that effort been like for you?
We haven't gone to the musicians individually, but I would like to, and I think, like Glenn is saying, it just has a lot to do with misinformation, and how the ordinance has been misconstrued over the years, how it applies to these different groups, how it applies to businesses versus street musicians. And I think we just need to come together with the city, and everybody just needs to get educated on how to comply, how to be better neighbors to each other.
But in the meantime, you're going to city council.
Right.
To city hall, instead of going to talk to them, because
that's the way it goes. That's the way it goes. I mean,
those are the laws already on the books, and they're just looking to enforce.
Well, that's not compromise, and that's trying to make it work.
But let's go to number 5 now. You want the permitting process to be significantly changed. Part of that is you want the public to have. So this is more than an enforcement here. You want part of the public to have the opportunity to comment before permits are issued. Where do you draw the line?
Well, these are mayoralty permits, and these are permits that the mayor can hand out to authorize certain property uses that wouldn't otherwise be authorized. And this just allows the public to have input when someone applies for a mayoralty permit.
So what extent? How much would someone's input weigh on the decision?
I don't know. I mean, that would be up to city council.
Okay. All right. And 6 and 7, real quick, basically those deal with the decibel levels, mm-hmm. 6 and 7. Is there anything you wanted to specify about that? Because I think it's back to, you want to bring the decibel levels that would be in compliance back to the way they were in 1989?
Yeah. Well, in 1997, actually, this is a typo, but...
Yeah, because the press release you guys sent us said 1989.
Yeah, but it was 1997. Mr. Troy Carter raised the decibel levels, but what we wanted to do is bring them back to the levels that existed. And in fact, I have a letter.
How drastically different are those levels?
They are not drastic. I think they
would be no louder than 85 decibels, but what? I don't know. You would know. Glenn, put that into perspective for us. What is 85 decibels?
You know what the decibel level is?
Yeah.
I went to jail with trombone short and tuba fat for the decibel level. It's 80 decibels. I can talk 80 decibels sitting at this desk. But the thing about the decibel level is this. It's a decibel meter. You're holding it on Frenchman Street. You're getting carriages, trucks, cars, people. You're getting all kind of this other sound besides the music, but they want to hold that against the music of the clubs. You're saying no, but I've been through
So
this.
let me ask you frankly, if this enforcement were to pass the way they want it, the maximum decibel level would be 85. Does that make it impossible for musicians such as yourself to perform out on the street?
Well, you have an Eyewitness News report. I think you should just go out there with the decibel and see for yourselves, and you'll see that that's a joke. You want to go back to 97. It's 2013.
I'm asking you because you're the expert in the musician.
Because I've been through it. Because I've seen before.
So what decibel level would be fair, in your opinion?
You got to, first of all, the decibel thing really doesn't make sense because you're capturing so much other stuff than the actual band. Mm-hmm. If you go on any street corner in
You mean
New
the
Orleans,
ambient noise?
Yeah. If you go on Oak Street, where there's only 2 music clubs, along with the 300 people that's outside on Oak Street and all the cabs that's parked in front of Maple Leaf, with all those engines running, it's going to seem like it's 120 decibels.
Okay, we have about 45 seconds left. So what are we going to do from here? Have we accomplished anything in terms of you guys meeting together before you go to City Hall and discussing a possible solution that would make all sides happy? Is a compromise possible?
I think before they should all went to City Hall, it doesn't hurt to get
Okay, but we've passed that.
Well,
so what do you do now?
You got to get with the club owners and the bands.
Is that possible, Justin,
Yeah.
from your group?
Yeah, sure.
Well, you guys keep us posted. Maybe we're making progress? Are you hopeful, Glenn?
No, I'm not. This has been a 20-year fight.
I know, I understand.
Hopeful.
I understand, and they feel the same way. So that's what makes America so great. All right, thank you guys both for coming on, Justin and Glenn. Good to see you, and keep us posted. We're going to continue to follow this.